Most of you undoubtedly know that the International AIDS Conference is held every couple of years, and this year it's in Durban. It'll be a conclave of 20 to 25,000 people, one of those extraordinary moments. And you know, across my computer this morning, there came a kind of promotional flyer for the International AIDS Conference. And in the narrative of that flyer, there were the following words. I think I'm quoting almost exactly. More than 60% of people living with HIV lack access to treatment. Now, that completely took me aback. It shouldn't. I'm not an innocent about these subjects. I deal with them all the time. My colleagues and I are immersed in HIV and AIDS. We're called AIDS-free world. But I was kind of stunned by the percentage equivalent. It's right, of course. There are 15 million people in treatment and some 22 million people who still require treatment. So the percentages are right. But I thought to myself, we're 35 years into the pandemic and 60% of the people living with HIV still don't have access to treatment. It was a stunning moment for me. Perhaps I'm unstable, but it was a stunning moment. Well then, you know, in New York in June, there's a high-level meeting on HIV and AIDS, the contents of which will have some impact on the International AIDS Conference. And the meeting is organized by UNAIDS, the coordinator of AIDS activity for the UN. And they have a political declaration coming. And there's an early draft, and I have it with me. And I want to read you one particular paragraph. Quote, "We note with deep concern that the HIV epidemic remains a paramount health development social challenge, inflicting immense suffering on countries, communities, and families throughout the world. Since the beginning of the epidemic, there have been an estimated 76 million HIV infections and 34 million people have died from AIDS." That's virtually the population of my country, Canada, 34 million people. And we're 35 years into the pandemic. It's sort of beyond belief. When you read further into the draft declaration, it has this litany of objective points that have to be absorbed. For example, that globally, AIDS is the greatest single killer of women of reproductive age. That there are 14 million orphans, their orphan status attributable to AIDS, that there are 6,000 new infections every day, 2,000 of them in the age category 15 to 24, overwhelmingly women and girls. As a matter of fact, if you reduce that age category down to adolescents, then because of the oppression of women and the absence of gender equality and the absence of sexual autonomy, if you move down to adolescents, twice as many, 3 times, 4 times as many girls are subject to acquiring infection as are boys of a similar age. And then you think of the high-risk groups. Do you know that injecting drug users are 24 times as likely to acquire HIV as adults in the general population? That where sex work is concerned, it's 10 times as likely to acquire HIV as their clients? That for men who have sex with men, again, it's 24 times as likely to acquire HIV. Transgender, 49 times as likely to acquire HIV. Prison populations, 5 times as likely to acquire HIV. These numbers are a nightmare. And if you look at young children, then you find that the testing and treatment is way below the levels of adults. And for what they call pediatric AIDS, fully half the transmission occurs during breastfeeding, and we have done virtually nothing about that reality over the years. You see, the truth is that the pandemic is rising in prevalence in places like North Africa and the Middle East and Eastern Europe and Central Asia. And to be sure, in the document, the draft declaration I refer to, there are strong elements of progress and triumphant moments about how we're making this progress and how much we should celebrate what we've done. But we're 35 years into the pandemic. I have to keep repeating that. And we still have 60% of the people or more who lack access to treatment. So this constant drum roll that it's the end of AIDS simply has a false note. It's misleading. It's transparent in its superficiality. And we have to get past it and recognize, as the Declaration recognizes, that at community level, in so many countries, AIDS still exacts a terrifying toll, heartbreaking in its devastation. That was last week. I'm Stephen Lewis.